All right, it's a little bit early, but we thought, hey, everybody's here. You guys want to get started? Cool. Welcome to our 2022 clinics. My name's Jerry. I have to tell you that because I forgot my badge. It's in my truck. The one that usually tows the trailer. So I change vehicles. I forget them. I might have to get another badge and put it in my other car. Okay, Bob, got a couple of presentations here.
Yeah. I'm going first.
Take the mic.
Yep.
So I'll hand it over to JT. We're the cannery train guys. I'll be the Vanna White if he needs assistance.
Well, there you go. Again, my name's JT Gerke, and I'm the train guy at the cannery, the main full-time guy. And so I retired from the sheriff's office as a sergeant and did my 28 years. Thank God I'm not doing that anymore. But, so I actually used to go into the cannery and with my grandson, just go in there for the trains, and one thing led to another, and I ended up getting the job. So it's kind of my retirement job. So I don't work because I have to. I work because I want to. And that's kind of a cool position to be in. So anyhow, just to give you a little bit of background in my experience with trains, it's just mostly Lionel stuff growing up. My uncle had one, my dad had one. We kind of did the Easter or the Christmas and the holidays and that type of stuff when we had the trains. But always kind of been a fix-it guy, and mostly with like firearms and that kind of stuff. And you'll see some similarities and mine's not going to be as technical as the last one. So it's basically a basic class on the maintenance and stuff. So, and I ended up replacing George and Denny there at the cannery, and they both had probably a combination of 50 years in model railroading. So, like I said, it's something that I didn't have the experience that they had. It's big shoes to fill, but we spent a lot of time on our ladders and stuff. By the way, make sure before you leave you grab a goodie bag, and that little silver thing in there is actually a pin thing to do pins, so you don't have to touch stuff if you don't know what that is. So anyhow, basically at the cannery, and this is just for the USA trains. We do have some LGB stuff, some Bachmann stuff, some Aristocrat, but mostly the USA trains. And just because it's just consistent and it's easier to get parts and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what today, but a lot of this stuff will be for some of your other trains and stuff. So we basically have 7.5 scale miles, and I was looking through some stuff the other day, and this was like in 08, 09, and that was like 400,000 or 500,000 miles, scale miles of running on the cannery. So I'm sure we have over 1 million now. So basically, those of you not familiar with the cannery, and I know some of you have done some tours there, and by the way, you can come by anytime and we'll give you a little private tour if you haven't had one yet. So, yeah, it's we do try to replace our locomotives every 2 weeks. So we run them to death. We actually get Mark from Bridgeworks brought some of his stuff in there to test, and I mean, we run these things to death, and you can see like some of the stuff over there that's failed over the years. Go ahead and go on to the next slide there. So basically, this is just a standard USA motor off of a Jeep 38, Jeep 7s, Jeep 9s. They're all pretty much standard. And so we got a little cradle, and I don't know if you guys have got that. I'm sure that y'all have, thing that always impressed me with modelers is all the little gadgets that you make, and we're a very creative bunch, so it's really kind of cool. So that's a little cradle that we made out of old stuff that we had with the CNC machine, and we just put a foam in there. You notice a little arrow that's pointing to the magnet there, and that's where we put our screws. So we just take off one of the the side trucks, just to get to it. And Bob will kind of go into that a little bit later, but that's actually a bypassed motor. If you notice the little connectors on the end, so they're not connected to the motherboard because that's the one that burned out. So you'll see the one over there. That locomotive is probably 15 years old. That's when it almost started a fire. So, so you just take that off. You start looking at the wires. You know, as you all know, stuff moves around a lot and stuff can be disconnected. So go ahead and go on to the next slide. So you rotate the motor out, you pull it out. And if you notice, it's kind of hard to tell, but there's some red writing on the motor, and I date anytime I get these. And I also, you know, as you know, anytime you get electronics, first thing you do is test. And I found out that these motors, you know, they're all from China, mostly everything is. This stuff sits in a container for months, could even be years. And we've had some motors go out after using them for a week. So I do try to lube them and oil them and service them before we actually put them in, because you never know how long that stuff's been sitting in a container or stuff. So go ahead and go on to the next one. So you remove your motor. Each one of these works independently without the motherboard. Let's see. That's the one where, notice he's got gloves on, so you just blow out the motor, use a glove, make sure you have a mask on, eye protection. That stuff flies all over. We call it Black Death, but I got a jar of it over there so you can look at it a little closer. But and again, use your senses. Not just by look, but by smell. If it smells electrical, smells hot, you know, that kind of stuff. Always be aware of that. You know, if it's got a grinding sound, that's not good. And I got some samples I'll do here, but go ahead and go on to your next one. Let's see. Okay, so we'll drop so let's see, did I do the grease or the oil? What am I on? Grease. Oh, so put grease on your worm. The old saying is, if it moves, lube it. And we try to put more stuff on. Now I know my experience in dealing with firearms and stuff that, you know, what's grease and oil do? It attracts dirt. So the more you put on, you know, but we found out with running these things, you know, if the store's open, the trains are running. And by servicing these, we end up doing, you know, we have 150 hours on them. Just, you know, during Christmas we had one, I think was up there for 6 weeks, ran the entire time, and we never serviced it. So I think we had to replace the motor on that one. But so we just use a lithium grease, just a basic auto parts. You can do your stuff and go online and buy model railroad stuff and pay 10 times the amount what you can, or you can get something basic. And this is just what works at the cannery, just because we just tear these things apart. And if you ever need to test anything, come on down. I know at one time, something that I was pleasantly surprised is a couple years ago we replaced all our brass with stainless. So code 250 on the stainless, and we run plastic wheels mostly. And I'll tell you what, they work. You know, as long as you don't have a car that's too heavy, but the plastic wheels do work, and they don't gum up the track as much and the wear, and I don't know why it is, but they last as long as the metal wheels. So that's just from our experience at the cannery. So you got me on that one. So just lube the worm drive. Go ahead and go on to the next one. This is kind of the big one where, and we just took the top off of the motor, and you just throw a little drop of oil on each shaft. You can almost double your motor life on these. And like I said, we've got to the point where probably go through, you know, a couple of these a month. I usually buy these a dozen at a time or 20, a couple dozen, you know, and it gets to a point where it almost behooves you to buy the whole unit and not the separate wheels and the separate motor like we've done before. It's just all kind of, you know, by the cost effective, it's just better to. But anyhow, let's connect one up for you here. Bob, why don't you grab this? So you can kind of hear that. So I'll keep that on there. I'm just going to add some Labelle 107 oil. So just by doing that, and I'm glad that worked out. Kind of. So just by doing that, it just makes a difference. So I got Screamer motors, most of all those over there. I purposely will run them dry just to see what it'll do. I've had them like catch fire before. I've even sprayed some of the electronic cleaner in there. Of course, that's flammable, so you have to be careful. But I tell you what, I've doubled and tripled the life of these motors by just simply just throwing some oil on the shafts like that. So next slide. Let's see how we do it on time. Okay. Then we use conductive grease. I just use the USA Trains, a little 2-ounce stuff that'll last you a long time. That's the black conductive grease. So basically anything that you need conductivity to, throw some of that on there. So I'll throw some on the axles, make sure the journals have it. And I'll even put it on the shoes or the ferrous wires, or they call that the pickup wires that run to the shoes, to both into the wheels. So basically anything that you need connectivity to. Now what we did do when we put all our track, and anytime I do attach like split jaw connectors, I'll throw some of that stuff on there. Just a little bit in there, and it keeps them easier to get off too. I don't know if you guys do that when you do your layout and stuff, but it's just another little thing that you can have some, you know, connection to. So let's see, go ahead and go to the next slide. Bob actually got us one of the wheel cleaners. That's is that LGB? Or is that just, I'm not sure. It's got the brass wiring just to clean the wheels and stuff. But it's kind of hard to tell, but if you look to the left of the wheel cleaner, you can kind of see the connection, and that's all buckled. That's from that motor that caught fire over there. So it bubbled that up. But even frying the motherboard and everything like it did, we're able to save it, just throw a new motor on there. And I don't always put, if I replace one motor on one side, I don't always replace the other one, just cost effective, but sometimes I do, just depending on what I've got. Let me run you, why don't you grab this?
Okay.
Try not to drop it this time. Okay, so that was my screen. And again, if you could kind of hear that, just, you know, we have most of all our trains are 9-10 feet in the air, so if we can kind of hear this stuff. And that one, the actually gears going out on. I've got another one. So it looks good. Oh, and another thing too is it's nice to have an amp meter. So, because if your motor's pulling a lot of amps, it's going bad. So this one, it was running okay. I lubed it and I oiled it. And now I'm putting pressure on the wheel. So what's that tell you is that my gear's bad. That's so cool to 3D print because you could do that all day long, but good. Thanks, Bob.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty much it. We try to keep it basic. It's just what works at the cannery, just because we just treat these things and they just get trashed. But you know, like I said, I'm sure it's not anything that you've seen or done before, but just one of the things to take away is when you get it, like I said, get a new one, you can at least take the top part off and put a little bit on the shaft. That seems to be the single most important thing, is just throwing an oil on that shaft. And just a medium grade oil. You can use 3-in-1. Again, you can pay overpriced if you buy it from somewhere else, or just a light medium oil works. So, anything to add? Cool. All right, I think that's it. Again, feel free to, before, somebody underneath your chair has a little slip, and you get a little door prize. So if you check your chair, you don't have to like get up, but you can probably feel, and it's somewhere over here, isn't it? There you go, look at you. And where do we, so basically it's a nice wooden cribbage board with the old cannery logo on it. There you go. So who doesn't like free stuff? All right, thank you. Oh, questions? Yeah.
Quick question. When you're saying putting the oil on the motor shaft, how much oil are you putting on the motor shaft? Is it a couple of drops? Is it?
Drop or two. Like that screamer, I just put 2 or 3, you know, to try to get it to, you know, but it's just like anything, you know. We just maintain, so when we basically pull them, we just put them off to the side, and then we service them, we put a date on them, and, you know, we probably have 25, 30 of these things that are just, we got 4 main tracks, but we got a bunch of trolley tracks, so it's just constant. You know, stuff, as you know, stuff sits for a while, you know, it's meant to be used. So, yeah.
Have you found any brand to be better than any other? You use USA, it sounds like you've decided that's a more reliable manufacturer than others.
You know, I do like LGB, it's just a little more spendier. We repair everything in-house, so I think at one time the train guys years ago used to send stuff out all the time. So in parts, you know, a little harder to find LGB stuff on. It's just more consistent, you know, type stuff. It was kind of the same thing when I was working for the sheriff's office. Is, you know, we had one pistol, or there were like 40 pistols, but to be consistent, you know, on whatever policy we wanted it, so we could get parts and that kind of stuff. Kind of the same thing. You know, most everything's still made in China, unless it's LG, you know, some of the LGB stuff. But you know, USA is okay. There was a time where we couldn't get those motors for about 1.5 years. This was actually pre-COVID stuff, and I was spending $150 for one of those on eBay. But I can get them now for $49 and $59 a piece. And that includes all the wheels and everything. So cool. All right, I think you're up, Bob. Or thank you.
Getting them to me on time so we can have a good day. So we're going to start out with Norm.